Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I'm doing my Aspec August wrap-up and also my Draconathon wrap-up, which I didn't really do a lot prompt-wise. I basically just read more dragon books than usual, and that's kind of what I did with Aspec August too. There were prompts for that, but I didn't even really look at them. I just read a bunch of Ace books that I could get my hands on. My cat is attacking the tripod. Thank you very much, Sam. You got to say hello. Yes. Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Hello. Hello. Firstly, a crossover between Draconathon and Aspec August. The Tropic of Serpents by Brennan is about a naturalist, I think she calls herself. She studies dragons. Is what she does. I was listening to the audiobook of this, which is very good, by the way. I really liked the way it was narrated and the different characters. It really felt like personalities were coming through in there. And as I was listening, it sounded like the beginning was set in a country very much like England back in the 1800s. And I was getting a lot of Amelia Peabody vibes. And so I thought for a while that this was set in 1800s Earth, but then as time went on, the characters kept talking about different countries I've never heard of, and then they talked about being from this country that was definitely not England that I've also not heard of. So I'm pretty sure it's actually set on an imaginary world that just has a lot of 1800s technology and also some of the society where these what sounds like being described as white people are going off to lots of other countries and studying their stuff in a much less colonizing way, in more of a friendly treaty kind of way. And the reason that it reminded me a lot of the Amelia Peabody series is that it is a woman who is fairly independent and is a scientist and is all about her studies, isn't very much interested in society outside of that. She has a young son, and she leaves him behind to go on her adventures, which Amelia Peabody also does. In this case, this is the second book in a series, and I read this one specifically because there is a Arrow Ace side character, and so she only becomes a major part of the story during this book, and so this book was on a Aspec literature compendium created by the same people who started Aspec August, which I highly recommend you take a look at because it's got loads of things that I had not heard of before. And I would have started with the first book in the series anyway, but it wasn't as immediately available from the library, and fortunately things are explained enough in this book that I felt like I got to know the characters and the world just fine without having to have read the first book first, and it seems like a lot of background is given for what happened that you need to know about in the first book, so you can jump into the series in the middle if you want to. I am planning on going back and reading the first book just because I enjoy this one so much and would like more of the story. So the Arrow Ace character is a 20-year-old, I think, young woman whose family is trying to marry her off for political and money reasons, and that's just what you do when you're a woman in this society. Yes, would you like to be in the video too? I would like to be in the video too. Yes. This one's a lot more sociable and okay with being picked up than the other one. Apparently my camera recognizes the little muffin as a face and wants to focus on his face. And this young woman is also interested in science and became acquainted with our main character, whose name I can't remember, through the main character's work, because the Arrow Ace's character's grandfather is a sponsor of the sciences and is specifically a sponsor of the main character. And so it becomes necessary at about the time when our main character is going to go off on another of her dragon studying voyages that our Arrow Ace character finds a need to run away from her family because they are aggressively trying to marry her off, and so she hitches a ride with our main dragon studying character and becomes her lady's companion, which is a thing that was a thing in the 1800s where a highborn rich lady would just pay another woman to be her friend. And sometimes would take like lady-in-waiting / maid duties and be kind of a go do this errand, go buy my tickets to the theater type stuff. But sometimes it was just lesbians having a way to keep their lover around and have them be financially secure, or a way for a rich woman to give another woman some independence so that she doesn't have to marry, because in this society, much like in 1800s England, women couldn't really get regular jobs. So it's a pretty cool thing for the few people fortunate enough to have a rich friend to do that for them. But it works to these characters' advantage because they go off together with a male scientist to this faraway country across the sea where they have different types of dragons. And there's a lot of politics going on because you have to get permission from the local government to study the dragons, and this local government also has ethnic groups within it that don't really respond to the government's authority, and they kind of have their own dragons that they're in charge of, slash that they know the land of those dragons, and so there's a lot of back and forth figuring out how to get access to actually study the dragons once they're in this country. And it was just generally very enjoyable, and the personality of the main character is enough like Amelia Peabody that I just find that particular personality very entertaining, and I liked it quite a bit. Then I was listening to the audiobook of Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Mareno-Garcia, and I like this a fair amount. Sometimes an audiobook really adds, sometimes it kind of detracts, and sometimes it just basically accurately conveys what the book is, and I think that's kind of how this audiobook was. I don't think it made me like the book more or less. The characters were pretty interesting, they were complicated. I liked the evolution of the God character, that the main character wakes up, which kicks off the plot, and the main character was pretty likable and understandable. The antagonists were also generally understandable, well explained, made sense, and I found the mythology really interesting, as well as the exploration and description of 1920s, I believe is when this is set, Mexico and southern US. And I thought the ending and all of the back and forth between how the gods would fight using human champions basically instead of actually fighting themselves, and they would fight in competition type ways instead of actually physically fighting, that was really interesting. But I was told by several people to kind of expect a meh book, and so my expectations were met. It was good, not great. Then for more Aspec reads, we have Help Wanted by Emery, and this is a novella or short story maybe that I bought back in April because I was reading a whole bunch of Ace books back then and I didn't get around to it at the time, so I just brought it up now, and I really liked it. I wasn't expecting to like it nearly as much as I did. I had totally forgotten that it was set in a magic school, and so it is about a romantic asexual who is trying to get through her magic school classes while also trying to scrape together enough money so that she can buy a really good present for her roommate and best friend. And so she gets a job at this magic shop where they sell magic mirrors and probably wands and potion ingredients, stuff like that. And at this store she meets this boy who she thinks is very cute and who has an interesting personality, and at first she's having trouble figuring out if she wants to be him or if she wants to date him, because although she hasn't decided to change pronouns, our main character is questioning her gender identity and is pretty sure she's not a woman, but isn't sure about non-binary or trans man, hasn't really figured that out yet, and so she kind of experiments with dressing kind of like this cute guy as she gets to know him. And it was just a really cozy, sweet story about these two and also her relationship with her roommate, who finally gets with the girl she has had a crush on for a long time during this story. And we also get those little magic school aspects of getting my homework done, that is a paper on how to turn into a crow, which is why there's a crow on the front of the book. And so it was just very cute and sweet, and I highly recommend it. Now I have some books to waft at you. So first one is Tarnished Are the Stars by Rosiee Thor. First of all, I love this cover. I love the purple to bluiness of it, and the whole sparkly stars thing, and the slightly steampunkiness of the clock with the screws and the thing. I love it. And it's accurate to the content in that this is a sci-fi that is also somewhat steampunkish, because there is a space station and there is like holo technology and spaceships that go to and from the planet to the space station and space age technology like that. But there's also a lot of pre-electricity technology that relies on gears and clockwork mechanisms, because on the planet all post-electrical tech is illegal, because they are worried that if they use too much post-industrial tech on this planet, they will wreck the planet, because they wrecked Earth. And this is a new Earth that they're colonizing and trying not to destroy with technology, which is a heavily flawed concept, because technology is not wrecking the Earth. Producing crap is destroying the Earth. But governments can be pretty stupid when making their laws, so I was willing to go with it. So this was another Aspec August read, because there are 3 main / perspective characters, and one of them is Arrow Ace. The other 2 are, I think, a bisexual person and a lesbian, and there is a female-female romance. One of our main characters has a ticker, which is just a pacemaker, but without electricity. It's a clockwork pacemaker, and all the people who live in her little town also have to have pacemakers, and she makes them, and then her grandfather is a surgeon and he puts them into people, and they also work together to give people prosthetic limbs and other things that they may need. But even this much technology is outlawed on this planet, basically because the commissioner who is in charge of the planet wants it to be that way. And my biggest problems with this book were the lack of explanation of the antagonists' motives and why they decided to have something against technology, and basically why they decided to do the things they did. Supposedly it was for their own gain, but it didn't seem like they gained enough from it to like justify how much work they put into it. But it didn't wreck it for me, it was just a little complaint. I really like the exploration of all 3 of the main characters. We have some moral grayness going on because of the different motivations. One of the characters works for the Queen, who lives on the space station and is super devoted and will do whatever the Queen says, even if it's something really horrible. So we deal with her going back and forth on that as she struggles with staying loyal versus her own morals. And then our Arrow Ace character is the son of the commissioner, so he deals with going back and forth between wanting his father to love and accept him and wanting to do the right thing and take care of people. And then our third character with the pacemaker is running around doing illegal things, and so she is kind of antagonistic to both of these characters, and I really like them figuring out, bouncing off of each other, what they really want and if they can achieve all of their goals together. I thought the world building was really fun, the technology and exploration of what would happen if society went wonky in this particular way. Then we have Tosh Hearts Tolstoy, which I have stayed away from because there's a really ugly guy on the cover, and I don't like classic male writers generally. And so I had no idea what this is about. Personally, I think they should put some kind of a cartoonish cover, kind of like the ones on Get a Life Chloe Brown, that like shows them filming something, because it's actually about this character Tosh, who is making a web series with her friend, a series of YouTube videos that is adapting Anna Karenina, written by Tolstoy, into a modern day story with YA age characters. But the author really liked Tolstoy, so she probably doesn't find a picture of him on the front of her book off-putting in any way. I actually totally love this. The main character is romantic asexual, sounds like sex repulsed, and it is all about her doing this filming. She co-directs and writes it with her best friend named Jack, short for Jacqueline. That confused me for like a page. and has a bunch of actors, some of whom she met at a art summer program and some who just came and auditioned for the roles. And I was really interested in that because obviously I'm into YouTube, and Tosh also does a vlog series where she talks about classic books and their modern movie adaptations, so it's very booktube adjacent. And in this particular story there is quite a bit of ace angst with the romantic asexual having romantic feelings and wanting to be in a romance and being hetero-romantic and being pretty sure that no guy will want to date her or be in a romance with her because she won't have sex with them. And the reason she's come to this conclusion is by talking to a lot of people online. That's how she figured out she was ace. And she also has heard a lot of stories about asexual people having relationships with allosexual people and it not working out. And that's something I have had myself, where I have joined asexual groups, and older asexual people have posted quite a few stories about, like, they were married to this person for 10, 13 years and suddenly their partner wants to have sex with them and is like poking and prodding them about it. And they come to this ace forum to ask for what advice. Dump them is the advice, by the way, and that's really worrying that you can have this lovely committed relationship with this person even after 10 years you're not safe. Like, they could just up and change their mind, and that's kind of a make or break your relationship thing, as opposed to other things that people might change their minds about are like, you can figure it out together. But somebody suddenly having a problem with your sexual orientation is like, which is why I stopped looking at those forums. I've just moved into, I guess, younger asexual spaces where we're mostly just hyping each other up and not asking for advice about our shitty allosexual partners. But anyway, there is a lot of her working through this, and her working through all of that, as well as working with her relationship with her best friend, because it's a lot to work on a huge project with your best friend, especially as the forward motion of the story comes from their little video series has been very under the radar for a long time, and then suddenly it gets a huge boost in viewership and subscribers because it gets mentioned by a larger blog. And so now lots more people are watching, there's lots more critics, it's possible they can make money off of this, and suddenly there's just a lot more pressure on both of them and on the actors and actresses. And our main character also has a sister who is going away to college a year before she is, and her sister feels all sorts of pressure and so is freaking out and going out drinking with her friends, and then their mom turns out to be pregnant, and it's just a bit of a big mess, and I really liked it. Every once in a while, asexual angst is fun and cathartic to read. I am also really enjoying Deathless Divide though, which I am going to finish this weekend hopefully, and tack on a little segment to the end of this video telling you about it. But in that there is no angst. The ace character is aro ace. She has no desire for any kind of romantic relationship. There's a lot of angst in her life, but it is not related to her sexual and romantic orientations, and that is also really nice. Now I want to talk briefly about Loveless by Alice Oseman. I ordered this probably at the end of July, and it was after that that I saw the reviews talking about how it was biphobic in a few places, bi/panphobic, and was generally quite antagonistic toward queer people who are not ace, and even antagonistic toward non-sex repulsed asexuals and non-aromantic asexuals. And so at that point I kind of regretted buying it, so I started reading it. I got about 40 pages in and I can already see what people are talking about. You know that moment in Pride and Prejudice when Elizabeth says, she complains about men, something about being eaten up with their own importance. And her aunt says, "Careful, dear, that savors strongly of bitterness." This book savors strongly of bitterness. And the way I recognize that is that I have also processed my traumas through writing stories, except that when I was done writing that out, I saved that document, and then I made a different version where I edited out all the personal stuff, made it much less exactly similar to my trauma, and then published that, because the world doesn't need to be subjugated to my unfiltered bitterness. Putting bitterness into your writing is fine in my opinion, but it should be filtered bitterness, not unfiltered bitterness. From combining what I have read so far and also what the reviews have said, it sounds like the author was very bitter towards allosexuals of all kinds, and basically everyone who is not sex repulsed, and kind of let that out without being careful that other marginalized communities didn't get hurt. Because one of the biphobic common ideas is that people who are either bi or pan are kind of sex crazy and have issues like mental or psychological issues surrounding that, and she apparently goes there with her pan character, basically in an effort, I think, to say, you make fun of me for not wanting sex, but you just want sex because you've got issues and are trying to deal with things in the wrong way, which I can see how you would feel the need to write that out to deal with the hurt that you have, but don't publish that. Which, yes, other types of queer people have tried to push asexual people and aromantic people out of the community because they say we're not oppressed. But not all other types of queer people have done that. And shooting that back at them and separating ourselves and saying that we're the most oppressed doesn't help, just makes that divide worse. We are all part of one community and we need to stick together and protect each other from stigma and hurtful things that people say, not say hurtful things back because some queer people were mean to us at some point in our lives. Now, I am planning on continuing this book. It is scrubbing at some raw places that I didn't realize I still had, aphobia-wise, and I think it is helping me process that a lot. So I plan to continue reading it, and I might give you more thoughts on it later. Don't read it if you are worried about being hurt that way. This could have been a perfectly good book if it had maybe been edited a little more strongly and some of the better things about other marginalized communities should have been cut. So hopefully I will see you back here for my review of Deathless Divide, which I'm so far liking very much. I'm about 30% in. So I finished Deathless Divide. It was amazing. It is the sequel to Dread Nation. Our Arrow Ace character was introduced in Dread Nation, but we get a lot more of her in this book because it is dual perspective between this character and the main character from the previous book, Jane. The Arrow Ace character's name is Kathryn. There was a lot of action. I also really like it when main characters make a lot of plans and think out their plans really well. Even if their plans don't come to fruition, or they have to change plans, or there's plot twists and unexpected things change, I mind that a lot less when the characters make the effort to make a plan. It just makes me feel more grounded and comfortable. So I really appreciated that. It also increases my estimation of the characters' caring about doing things well and their skills and intelligence, that they bother to make a plan that is thorough. So I really like that in this book. There were so many twists and turns. I felt like my mind was constantly being blown in a good way. I don't read many zombie books at all, so I don't know much about the genre and whether this was like totally mind-blowing for the genre, but for me it was very creative, and I never knew where things were going to go next. Like, I had a vague idea, but I really liked how our knowledge about how these zombies worked kept evolving, and our understanding of all the characters and their motivations kept evolving, and how there was a good mix of coincidence with various people's planning that brought things together in the end. I kind of want to do a big discussion piece on this, so I might do like a little side video during the Monster-thon. Since it is about zombies, it kind of goes with it, because there's like lots of little subtopics I want to talk about, like themes of revenge, and if you kill bad guys, are you a bad guy, and scientific experiments, what happens if good eventually comes from them, but they experimented on people immorally to get there, as well as Kathryn has what appears to be an anxiety disorder, and I really liked how that was shown along with her various coping mechanisms. I loved the girl love in this book. The relationship between Jane and Kathryn takes center stage, but there are also lots of other female-female relationships, romantic and otherwise, present, and there are also relationships with children that seemed realistic and were gone into quite a bit. It gets pretty dark, so be aware of that, but I just really enjoyed it and really enjoyed the Eros representation as well. So I highly recommend you read this book if you like books with monsters of any kind, but particularly zombies. And if you know of any other zombie books written by women, I would love to hear about them, because I would really like to get into this genre some more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!